And we have an incredible Filex Business Summit coming up. It's on August 22nd and 23rd in Sydney at the Hilton. We have so many incredible speakers, amazing speakers, and it's going to be an extraordinary 2 days. It's fully catered, and we've got early birds at the moment, which is only $595, and then it's only $495 if you use the code ELITE. So $495 for a 2-day conference that is catered, that is in a world-class location with some of the best thought leaders in the country itself. So I will definitely be there. I would love for you to be there as well. But that's not why you're here. You're here to see the amazing, the superb Jen Dugard. I've known Jen for probably getting close on a decade now. I think we're both industry dinosaurs, so we're showing our age there. And she has always been just a phenomenal powerhouse, very insightful, great thought leader, very caring, very mission focused. And today she is talking about how to attract, serve, and retain your clients. Now, if you don't know who Jen is, she operates a few different businesses under her umbrella. She's got the Safe Return to Exercise certification. She's got the Mum Safe community. She's got the Mum Safe Academy. And she is making a huge impact in this industry. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to the one and only Jen Dugard.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Can everyone hear me? Hey, Beck. Noticed you popped up on my Instagram the other day, which was lovely. All right. I'm going to do that whole share screeny thing and hope it works out. I always think at this point there should be like a, hey, Siri, please share my screen. And my life would be easier. But can everybody see that first slide? Awesome. Before we get started, I do love a conversation. So if something comes up when I'm talking, I'm not someone that wants you to wait till the end to put the comments. Please let them roll. If I need to, or if we decide to unmute at any time and have a conversation, I'm totally up for that as well. So obviously I've got things to share with you today, but it's always important to me that you guys get what you need to get from today as well. And that could be sharing a story, it could be asking a question, it could be all of the things. The other thing I will let you know is I have a dog that may bark and a child that should be at school that is not. She is a bit older, so if any of those things happen, I'm sure some of you can relate to mum and pet parent life and running a business. So we will roll with whatever happens this afternoon. So Dan just gave a bit of an intro about me. I'll give you a little bit more on a screen. I'm not going to delve into it for a long time, but I have been in the industry for a long time. It's actually over 17 years. I founded Body Beyond Baby, which was my first fitness business post working in Fitness First Bondi Junction when my son was 3 months old and he turned 16 in July. So that makes me nearly have a child that can drive a car, which is not the best thought process. I ran Body Beyond Baby in Sydney Centennial Park for a decade. So we became the go-to fitness business for mums in the eastern suburbs. We did launch across other parts of Sydney, the northern beaches, inner west, but I sold that business in 2018. I used to think I needed to moved to Bali, and then I realized I needed to stop standing outside in Sydney winters and just, get out of Centennial Park. So I've won a bunch of awards along the way. I wrote a book in 2013, that's a decade ago now, called How to Love Your Body as Much as Your Baby. I thought of a new book title yesterday, but maybe I'll share that down the track. As Dan said, I have my certification, Safe Return to Exercise, which is a pre and postnatal course that runs over about 16 hours. You can do it virtually or in a hybrid. And I do speak in a bunch of places, hence why I'm here today. I also sit on the board of AusActive. So if anyone's got any feedback, I'm always have my ears open and will deliver it back to the team. The reason I am there is to represent personal trainers. So if that is where you sit, then I am your voice if you choose that you need one. I am mission driven. So I'm on a mission to ensure that all women are looked after safely and effectively within the fitness industry once they become a mother. And I realized a few years into running Body Beyond Baby and then Safe Return to Exercise. Safe Return to Exercise was developed in about 2016 and it's been delivered across the world. But in order to achieve the mission of safe and effective exercise for mums, We need to ensure that all exercise professionals have a sound general knowledge in working with mums. Now, this is something that really pisses me off, for want of a better term, and I do swear, so hopefully you guys are all down with that. 16 years later, and we're still not getting this shit right, and it's really, really not good enough. So this is a little bit of my product architecture. As Dan mentioned, we have SRE, we have a small short course, Safe Return to Exercise running edition sitting under that. Being Safe Return to Exercise certified gives you that badge, and then you can choose to become a Mum Safe trainer if you want to. Mum Safe trainers are the gold standard of pre and postnatal personal trainers across Australia and beyond. We're launching in the UK at the moment, so that's pretty exciting. Today, enough about me. Today, we're going to go into statistics. So in the title of this, we said mums are your largest demographic. So I want you to truly understand that that is the case. We're going to talk about attracting mums into your business, how we go about doing it, how we sometimes go about doing it in not the most effective or the best way for our mum clients, and how we could do it better. Then we're going to talk about serving, and that starts right from your onboarding all the way through the partnerships you have in the industry, and beyond that. And of course, that leads into retention, because if you're serving them well, you will retain those clients. And I can promise you that your mum clients will become your biggest fans if you are serving them well. Yeah. All right. So did you know that in 2020, there were 4.35 million women in Australia participating in fitness and gym activities? Now, this was in comparison to only 3.5 million men. Yeah, so already we start to go, there's more women walking through the doors of our training environments than there are men. But our industry is still catered, or all of our certifications are geared towards a male body. It's starting to change. There's some different providers doing things differently out there, and there's more courses, but essentially at the core, that Cert 3 and 4 is designed around a male body, and nobody tells us what we don't know. Yeah, so we leave our Cert 3s and 4s and we kind of go, we think that we're equipped to work with the general population. We're equipped to work with men. Yeah. And then we need to start adding in there how we're training women differently, and specifically your mums. There's another statistic from the ABS, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, from 2016, that said women make up 77% of those over the age of 15. Sorry, mums make up 77% of women over the age of 15 in Australia. So hopefully we're waiting for many, many years beyond 15 before we have babies. But that tells us that of all women over the age of 15 in Australia, 77% of them are likely to be mothers. Now, I have what I said is nearly a 16-year-old who helped me to do some maths on this. And it works out that 42.7% of your potential clientele are likely to be mothers. Yep. So there's a bit of a chart here. So we've got 42.7% of the general pops walking into a gym or training or boot camps or whatever are mums. The remaining 12.7% are women, and then 44.6% are men. So you start to see how important this information really is. There's more statistics, a few more to throw at you if you're not already convinced. Women make up 80% of those who report living with incontinence. Now, I always feel like this statistic is a little bit skewed in the opposite direction, because it's less socially acceptable for men to say that they're living with incontinence. But knowing that is a big, big statistic. Half of all women who've ever had a baby will experience prolapse. If you don't know what a prolapse is, probably don't Google it. It's not a good idea. But to give you an idea, as a woman, we have a bladder, uterus, and rectum. It's when any one of those organs starts to fall into the walls of the vagina, and in the worst case scenario, sits on the outside. Yep. I was at a Women's Health and Fitness Summit a number of years ago now, and there was a woman on stage sharing her journey. She lived in a remote part of Queensland, and she was sharing with us that one of the organs was sitting on the outside of her vagina after she had a baby, and it was rubbing on her underwear to the point at which it was bleeding. Yeah. Now, these are not stories to scare. And I know a lot of people are like, don't say these things because it scares people. For us as trainers, it's an awareness piece. And we need to understand what mums are experiencing after they've had babies, and the care that they do or do not have access to. and where we come into that, because we have a really big opportunity to create change. The other thing to know is that 1 in 3 Australian women experience pelvic floor dysfunction. Now, pelvic floor dysfunction isn't only a weaker, lower tone pelvic floor, which may result in prolapse like the woman I was just talking about. There's lots and lots of young women in Australia today who have what we call a hypertonic or too tight pelvic floor. Yep. Some of the symptoms, or one of the symptoms of a hypertonic pelvic floor, is also incontinence, because her pelvic floor cannot contract because it's already so tight to keep her continent, when she's doing life, and especially when she's training. So the things that you learn when you do further education in this space, yes, they apply to your mums, but they apply to all of your women and sometimes your men as well. Yep. So there's never any information that's going to get wasted. There's another survey that we actually did in 2016, and I'll just pull out some of the big stats for you there. 40% of these women said that they felt their birth was traumatic. That's a lot. 88.5% were never advised to see a women's or pelvic health physio, and if you don't know what that is, we are going to talk about it. 82% had never been referred to anyone postnatally for a pelvic floor screening, and 50% said they were living with symptoms of pelvic floor weakness, and 60% were given absolutely no return to exercise guidance at all after having their baby. I actually think that number would be higher in a lot of cases, that 60%. So makes me angry and excited as well, because there's so much that we can do. Please do put questions and things in the chat if you've got them as we go. Actually, I've got a question for you right now. When we talk about postnatal, who are we talking about? Or better question to you guys is there a point in the journey of a mother that we don't need to worry if she's postnatal anymore? So if you can pop in the chat box, do you think that at 6 months postnatal, she's fine, we don't need to worry? Is it 12 months? Is it when her baby is 17, 16 like mine? At what age do we as trainers need to not worry about our clients being postpartum? I'll let you guys pop something in the chat box. I'm going to have a little drink while you do that. I love it. And you know what I love is more and more I'm giving presentations in these environments and people are saying never, or there's not an age limit. What I would like to ask you though, is there ever a time where you thought that there was an end to the postpartum period? So was it, I don't know, we've had people say 6 weeks postnatal before. People will say 6 months postpartum. Other people will say when she's finished breastfeeding. And I'm glad that in the environments that I'm coming into, there's more of an awareness around the fact that we want to use the phrase once postnatal, always postnatal, because the reality is that until she leaves us and she's no longer on this earth after she's had a baby, she is postnatal. Alex had never really considered it, and she'd assumed that 1 year until she programmed a Mums and Bums class and her awareness changed, which is fantastic, right? But I can promise you that there's a lot of our industry out there, or if you're someone that owns a club, they'll have trainers, you'll have trainers in your environment that think that postnatal doesn't apply to them because they don't look after pregnant or early postnatal mums. So we need to make sure that ourselves and the people underneath us, and in any group fitness environments that we might work in, that the trainers or the instructors understand that any woman in their environment that's had a baby is considered postpartum. And that's why I like using the word mums instead of necessarily postnatal. All right. Oh, there they are. So there's a big opportunity in the marketplace to attract mums into our fitness businesses. For those of you that do traditional hours, so I'm talking like your 6 a.m.s through to like 8:30, 9 o'clock, your clients will go to work. Then in the evening, you might do from, I don't know, 4:30, 5:30, 6, you might work till 8 o'clock. Is that kind of what most people are doing? Some of you might do some sessions during the day. But for a lot of fitness environments, studios, when it gets to that 9:30, you might have the trickle of clients that can do one-on-one sessions, but the most obvious demographic is a mum. Yeah, so we could start to think about talking to a mum market. You might have seen signs like this, and I just want to talk here about different ways we kind of start to appeal to mums in the marketplace. So, you drive past a gym. I think, Dan, years ago, I used to drive past your old gym when I dropped my son at South Coogee Public School, and there was a sign, not necessarily like this one, but it was a 9:30 mums and bubs session. And the goal was to capture that mum market after they dropped their older kids at school and they were on their way home and they could come and train. So from a marketing perspective, it's really obvious that at that time you would start to think about mums as being the primary demographic. They're gonna fill your training environments when other people are at work. What about signs like this? I want you to start to consider what kind of messaging we want to put out to the mums that we want to attract into our business. It's really, really easy when you're trying to attract postpartum women, mums into your business, to play on her insecurities. And you might bring them in with this messaging, but it's going to perpetuate the problem or the belief that a lot of women think that smaller is better. Yeah, so right now we're just thinking about what kind of messaging we are giving to our mums or we're going to put out there that is effective. So let's not say that. Yeah, let's not market to our mums, we're going to lose your baby weight, help you to lose your baby weight and fit back into your jeans. What about this one? Who loves this phrase? If we did nothing else apart from remove the phrase, get your pre-baby body back from our fitness industry language, we would be taking a huge, huge step in the right direction when it comes to working with women and specifically mums. What about this one? I like this one. So we're running a 9:30 mums and bubs exercise class. It's run by certified trainers. That's important. We understand your pelvic floor and your abdominal wall, and we're going to provide you with safe and effective exercise. Which one would you guys go with? Number 1, number 2, or number 3? Should be a no-brainer, really, shouldn't it? So what we need to understand when we're working with mums is the difference. We need to make absolutely no assumption about weight loss. Yeah, so we need to not assume that the only reason that she wants to train with you is to lose weight. There's a huge amount of power in helping her to remove the language, get your pre-baby body back. Don't use it in your goal setting. Don't use it in your marketing. Be aware of the imagery that you're putting out on your social media and in your marketing. So if the imagery you're putting out there for your mums and bubs sessions is all lean white women in crop tops, we might want to work on that, bring some different body sizes, different backgrounds of people into our marketing and help mums of our communities understand that the service that we're offering is inclusive of all mums. We also want to understand that she's managing the demands of day-to-day life when she's walking into our training environment. So we're going to need to start to adapt the training that we do according to that. We want to know that training for mums is not only about what squats and lunges she can do in the gym, but it's about her mental health as well. And also that community. Yeah. So creating a really strong community that your mums are involved in will also keep them coming back over and over again. Got a little comment in here. Ariane, getting stronger because they want to regardless. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So when we're considering how we are serving, so we've got them through the doors, we've used some kind of, whether it was a sign outside, we've given out flyers, we've run a Facebook ad, we've considered the language, the imagery, the promises that we're making to our mums. We need to really start to serve her. And in order for us to do that, we need to understand her journey so far. So for those of you that may have never had babies or don't know the process, you go through some prenatal classes. No one really talks to you in those prenatal classes about your body. They talk to you about the birth. They talk to you about your pain relief. They talk to you about how you might start to learn to breastfeed your child, even bath your child. But it's very, very rare that they're teaching you about your body, about your pelvic floor, about your abdominal wall, about how things are changing and preparing you for the birth process and what is going to happen postpartum. So you go through the delivery, you have the baby, hopefully in a relatively non-traumatic way. And then 6 weeks after having your baby, you have something called her 6-week checkup, which most of you have probably heard of because it says on your medical questionnaire, have you had a 6-week checkup when you ask it? So we need to understand what actually happens at her 6-week checkup. Now, I've got a couple of slides from different states. So this is one from, I think it's from the ACT Health. This is an example of her GP. So the GP does her 6-week postpartum checkup. They're checking on her well-being, so her psychological well-being, which is very, very important because we've mentioned mental health already. They're checking on, is she still bleeding? After you've had a baby vaginally, you bleed for quite a long time, but 6 weeks postpartum, it should have stopped. So they want to make sure that that's happened. They want to make sure you're going to the bathroom well, have good bowel movements. They're checking on what they call normal post-pregnancy progress. Has she had sex yet? But we've not talked about her pelvic floor. A lot of women need a bit of conversation and to make sure that they're healing well before they're going into conversations about sex. But we're going to give her contraceptive. And then we're going to start to talk about the baby and make sure the baby's going well. So you can see in there is very little, if not, well, there's no examination around her body. There's another one here from the Mater Hospital in Queensland. So this is 2 15-minute appointments. It is, a longer one for mum, so 30 minutes, which is a step in the right direction. But the main focus is internal examination. The internal examination is to may or may not check for prolapse, often doesn't. Then they're looking at the abdominal wall, but they're checking to see if the uterus is shrinking down to the right, its previous side. They're not necessarily checking for abdominal separation. Some well-educated midwives, GPs, obstetricians will check for that or may check for that, but they're not really trained in, oh, you've got a four-finger separation and it's quite deep, and when you activate your transverse abdominis, there's no tension created at the linea alba. They don't know that stuff, and they're not checking for that stuff. And that's the stuff that you guys really need to understand when you're taking her into a training environment and she's starting to move her body. So what you can see from here is often her pelvic floor is not checked, and it's definitely not checked adequately. Her abdominal separation is often not assessed. If it is, it'll be like, oh yeah, you've got 2 fingers, that's normal, don't worry about it, off you go. That's the kind of end of that conversation. Even if those things are, it is not standard for our postpartum women to be given any specific return to exercise guidance in Australia as yet. And she's often told she's normal, but what she needs to be told is that she is postpartum normal. The other thing that you guys need to understand is that the 6-week checkup is not a clearance to exercise. The 6-week checkup is the end of her medical postpartum care. Now, we in the fitness industry have done a really good job of going, cool, 6-week checkup, end of care, can start to move. Now that's our clearance to exercise. And if we're not educated, we go, cool, we're going to move you in any way that felt good beforehand, because apparently the medical industry has given you a tick of approval to move your body. So really, really important that we as trainers understand that her 6-week checkup is not enough to return her to the exercise that she was doing beforehand. It is a line in the sand. Medical industry is no longer part of her care. If she chooses to move forward with us in the fitness industry, then we can start to return her to movement safely and effectively. We need to rebuild her from the inside out. Any questions? So Jess has just said that they're way more than she got at her 6-week checkups. Yeah, right. So that's not good. Did you want to share, Jess, or?
Yeah, I don't mind sharing. Yeah, definitely. I've had 3 little ones now.
Yep.
And not one my mental health was touched on, yes, but I never got examined, checked down there, absolutely nothing. So it was all focused on baby. And then, oh, are you feeling okay? And that was it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's really important. So even the benchmarks that we're talking about are not being hit in all environments. Thanks, Jess. Pre-exercise screening. So let's say she's come to us, she's had a 6-week checkup. We're going to start serving her well as soon as she comes through the door. Now, there's 3 questions that are normally on your pre-exercise screening when it comes to onboarding anybody into your training environment. And the 3 questions that are aimed at mums are generally these ones. Just put a nod or put something in the chat box to agree or disagree with what I'm doing. In fact, I looked at a pre-exercise screening. I was researching a couple, and one of them didn't even have have you had a baby in the last 12 months? And that was the end of the questioning. So these are generally the standard questions that are on a pre-exercise screening. I want to reinforce at this point, it's absolutely imperative that you do pre-exercise screenings with clients before they start to move with you. Now, some of you will be going, yeah, no shit, that's obvious. But I know that there's training environments out there and those that are specific to working with mums that are pushing people into classes and worrying about pre-exercise screenings later. It's not okay. Yeah, it's not good enough. So let's go through these 3 questions and work out why they're just not quite good enough for what we need when we're working with our pregnant or postpartum clients in this case. So have you had a baby in the last 12 months? So number 1, we already know that a mum isn't only mums of babies under 1. Yeah, so she could have a 6-year-old and she's still experiencing postpartum or what are the words, symptoms that have been a result of pregnancy, birth, and the early postpartum stage. So 12 months is a very, very small amount of time postpartum. The other thing that we need to be aware of is this says, have you had a baby in the last 12 months? What if she's got more than 1 baby? What if she did have a baby in the last 12 months and the delivery was okay or normal? And I hate the word normal in this space, but let's say there was no trauma, no big events that made it really challenging. But the baby that she had before that, the baby that's now 6, she had a really, really long delivery. She was pushing for a really long time. She had tearing, she had forceps delivery, and she had a lot of pelvic floor trauma. If we're only asking about 1 baby, we're missing a huge, huge picture of her world. Yeah. The other thing that we need to understand or remember on our pre-exercise screenings is that we need to ask about all pregnancies and all births, not just all children that she has. Some women do experience late-term miscarriage, stillbirth, or babies that pass away early postnatal or when they're very, very little, so infant death. So we need to be aware of and able to handle the conversations around all of her pregnancies, not just how many children that she's got in tow with her on any given day. The next one is, have you had your 6-week checkup? We've already established that her 6-week checkup is not enough and that it's not adequate for us to be just going, cool, you had a baby in the last 6 months, tick to that one, but you've had your 6-week checkup, tick to that one, but we're going to continue moving along. And then the last one is, do you feel okay? I can promise you that most postpartum mums do not know what being okay means. Yeah, being okay is getting through life. Being okay is, I've got symptoms, but I'm not hurting. So we need to be aware that she may have symptoms of a weaker pelvic floor. She may be leaking, but it's not painful. So if you say to her, do you feel okay? She's like, yeah, I feel okay. But you've not asked her any more questions about what you need to understand. Now, this presentation isn't about all of the questions that you need in your postpartum screening. I have popped a QR code there to a masterclass. It's called Beyond Her 6-Week Checkup that you may find helpful. And we do delve a little bit deeper in that masterclass into the things that you need on your pre-exercise screening. The main thing that I want you to take away today is it's not enough to only ask those 3 questions. We need to be asking things like, what kind of delivery did you have? Did you have a vaginal delivery or a C-section? If you had a vaginal delivery, how long were you pushing for? Did you have any tearing and episiotomy? Did they use any instruments to get an idea of her pelvic floor? Then we need to ask questions of a mum that's had a C-section and then go into her pelvic floor and all of those things. Does anyone have any questions about pre-exercise screening? Cool. Let us continue. care is your very best retention strategy. Now, we've started with pre-exercise screenings, but it goes much, much deeper than that. So once you've got your specific to pregnancy and postpartum pre-exercise screening sorted out, we need to make sure that we have a team when we're working with our mum clients. As exercise professionals, we've all heard the term scope of practice. So we need to make sure that what we're doing in our training sessions and the conversations we have with our clients, when they get to a point where we go, I'm probably not qualified for this, that we have a team around us that we can refer to. So that team could look like this. So you've got the nurses and people that they're seeing. You've got mental health providers, could be nutritionists, doctors. We've got the woman herself, could be massage therapists. We've got physios. So we've got a huge number of people that we can start to put in our orbit in order to care for our mum clients. Now, if you become, I like to think as trainers as we're the listeners and we're the connectors, and then we implement the exercise, right? Based on what we've heard, where we've connected her to, the information that we've got back from the person that we've connected her to, and then we create the exercise program based on the whole picture of her as a woman, rather than just, again, what squats and lunges she can do in the gym. The other thing that this starts to do for us as trainers working with mums is create that network of partners around us, where initially we may be the main referrer out, but over time, once they learn that they can trust us, we create a really beautiful symbiotic relationship where we're sending clients to them, they're letting us know about what's going on, they're sending us back, and then they'll have a mum client, they'll go, I know, Jess is a really great trainer in this space. I'm going to send my postpartum mum to her because I know Jess is not going to break her. Yeah. So we start to have that really great referral network within our business. The number one person that we need on our team out of all of these referral partners when we're working with pregnant and postpartum women with mums is a pelvic health physiotherapist partner. So you may or may not know that her pelvic floor is an internal muscle. No matter how good you are at your job as an exercise professional working with mums, you cannot see or feel her pelvic floor. You may have been in environments where people put their fingers just inside of her hip bones and they feel the muscle come on and they go, yep, your pelvic floor is working. What that actually is her transverse abdominis. And yes, pelvic floor and TA are designed to co-contract, but they don't always. And you may have some of your pregnant and postpartum women and mums and men and all of the people are tensing their abdominal wall and switching on their TA, but while they're doing that, they're creating intra-abdominal pressure and they're bearing down on their pelvic floor, and it's actually creating a problem. So we need our pelvic health physio partners to be those eyes on the inside to let us know what her pelvic floor is doing, look at her abdominal wall. If she's got any pelvic pain, they're going to look at that as well. So this is what your pelvic health physio partner is generally going to do. They're going to look at her pelvic floor on the inside. They may use a tool called real-time ultrasound. For those of you that train in environments with mirrors, you know, when you say to your clients, push your knees out a bit, you can see it in the mirror. Real-time ultrasound gives your client the opportunity to see her pelvic floor muscle on a screen. And on the screen, she can see when you give her a cue, if she actually lifts or she pushes out. The other thing that they will do is some really well or really good internal examinations, and they'll do a measurement called GH plus PB, which is genital hiatus to perennial body. So basically her vagina to the back to the front of her anus, and they'll look at how much ballooning there is on a Valsalva. Now, if she has ballooning at a measurement over 7, then she's at higher risk of prolapse and something called levator ani avulsion. And avulsion is when the muscle of the pelvic floor has come off the bone, but we can talk about that another day if you choose. The other thing to understand is that mums need individualized pelvic floor training. And it's not until you send them to a pelvic health physiotherapist can we give them the pelvic floor exercises that they need. We touched on hypertonic pelvic floor right at the beginning. If your client has a pelvic floor that is too tight and cannot relax, the last thing that she needs is to be told to do more pelvic floor exercises. You might have a client that has a low tone pelvic floor that needs to build the tone. So she needs specific pelvic floor exercises for that. You might have someone that has relatively okay tone, but she doesn't have great endurance. So she needs her pelvic floor training to address that. And your mums with hypertonic pelvic floor need to be given down training and specific stretches and exercises that allow her to relax her pelvic floor. So lucky for us, it is not within our job, I believe, to give pelvic floor exercises to our clients. We get to send them to a pelvic health physio. They give them the individualized training program, and we can become an accountability buddy. But that is one of the real important reasons that we need our clients to see a pelvic health physiotherapist. If we have a pregnant client who has a hypertonic pelvic floor, who's leaking, and we say to her, oh, you might have a weak pelvic floor. Hypertonic pelvic floor is a weak muscle, but it's a too tight weak muscle, not a too loose weak muscle. What do you think is going to happen if she's pregnant? We give her more pelvic floor exercises, and her plan is to have a vaginal delivery. Do you think it's going to make it easier, or do you think it's going to make it harder? There's a few people nodding. So yeah, if you've got a pregnant mum who's leaking, and we make the assumption that she has a low tone pelvic floor that needs more pelvic floor exercises, then she winds her pelvic floor, winds her pelvic floor, winds her pelvic floor up. She comes to 38, 39, 40 weeks pregnant. She goes to try and push a baby out, and that's not going to happen. Yeah, so that's where we end up with women having emergency C-sections or forceps deliveries, because they've never learned how to fully relax their pelvic floor. So not only is it a good idea to send our postpartum mums to see a pelvic health physiotherapist, but it's also a really good idea to send our pregnant mums to see a pelvic health physio, so that they can understand not only how to contract their pelvic floor, but also how to relax it. And then when they come to pushing their baby out, potentially it's going to be easier. There is a research paper now on hypertonic pelvic floor and delivery, saying that it does make a vaginal delivery harder if someone has a hypertonic pelvic floor, which makes a whole lot of sense for me. No, Ariane, it won't be fun at all. The other thing that we need to know is that 60% of women actually do their pelvic floor incorrectly. I'm with you, Jess. So that means that when they think that they're doing a pelvic floor contraction, they're actually bearing down through their pelvic floor. So, and this is women that have either been told by their trainer what to do, read it from a brochure, or generally been given verbal instructions, but no one's ever checked to see if they're doing it properly. So if you've got a mum, let's say you've got a postpartum mum, let's say her baby's 3, so not early postpartum. Let's say she was pretty strong pre-pregnancy, and she's managed to build up a bit of strength postpartum. She thinks she's been doing her pelvic floor exercises well. So she comes to you and she says, yeah, I've been doing my pelvic floor exercises. I've been doing them when I've been feeding my baby at the traffic lights. I've been doing them laying on my back. I've been trying to do all the right things. But unbeknownst to her, and also to yourself, that instead of drawing her pelvic floor up every time that she's thought she's doing a pelvic floor contraction, she's been pushing out. So not only has that been putting that downward pressure on her pelvic floor already, but because she says she feels okay, she's got a baby over 12 months and she's been doing her pelvic floor exercises, and she's pretty strong, she's used to lifting quite heavy. You take her into the gym or the park, wherever it is, you put her under load, let's say it's a barbell, she goes down into that squat, and you cue pelvic floor or tense or brace or whatever the terminology is that you like to use. And on that cue, she does that pelvic floor activation, which is a bearing down. She does it harder because she's lifting a heavy weight, and now she's doing it under load. So she's created a lot more intra-abdominal pressure. She's already bearing down on her pelvic floor. And then now let's say we've put 40, 50, 60 kilos on her back. Now you can see over time, if she continues to train and lift in that way, that could be a recipe for a prolapse. Yeah, so there is such a thing as an exercise-induced prolapse. So again, if we can get all of our clients to see a pelvic health physiotherapist early postpartum, whether they're symptomatic or not, we can help them to learn if they're doing their pelvic floor exercises well, and if what exercises they need, and that they can then take that into whatever training environment they choose to go into. So, Ariane. So our medical industry are amazing. Yeah, we're a very privileged country that we have access to great medical care. Our GPs, doctors, obstetricians, midwives are not trained in pelvic floor contractions. It's just simply not part of their training yet. It should be, but it's not. So it may or may not, they may have said, you know, squeeze your pelvic floor, imagine you know, doing all these things, but even with the right instruction, she could have still got it mixed up in her head. And they definitely didn't do an internal examination to help her to understand what a correct pelvic floor exercise is. So probably not the wrong instruction, but the wrong interpretation of a very high level instruction that doesn't really go into that much detail around how to do something well. Yeah. So for us, it's really, really important to understand that women are exercising at a higher level than they've ever done before. We've got more women weight training. It's awesome. We've got more women doing CrossFit. We've got more women powerlifting in gyms, in all of our training environments, in our HIIT classes, running marathons, doing those kind of things. So if we don't look after her body now, we don't know what's going to happen in 10 years' time. We need to understand that if she's given the tick of approval at that 6-week checkup, she will go back to doing what she was doing beforehand if she's not educated otherwise. And the other thing, and we touched on at the beginning, that we don't want to perpetuate is women are driven by aesthetics often. Sometimes, I don't know which word to use, often or sometimes. And it's very easy for her to shut down signals that are telling her things are wrong if those signals are not painful. So weakness of pelvic floor is often not painful. Hypertonic pelvic floor maybe, but weakness of pelvic floor, lower toned, is often not. Weaker abdominal wall, large abdominal separation is not painful until she ends up with a hernia, which could be very painful. Yeah. So my questions to you are, do you guys care enough? It's a shit question, isn't it? Do you care enough that when she's gone through your pre-exercise screening and you've sent her to see a pelvic health, oh, I've got my slides the wrong way around. That's interesting. That's all right. I'll go through them all. She's been to see a pelvic health physio, that you now know within your training environment how to adapt training for her. So can you provide adaptations for the 5 key contraindications that we see over and over again in our pregnant and postnatal mums? These are pelvic floor, abdominal wall, wrist pain, knee pain. There should be pelvic pain. There should be pelvic pain in there as well. My apologies. Plus pregnancy. So if you really, really think about it and you really, really drill down, if you had a woman with, you know, poor abdominal control or no abdominal control, peaking when she's doing things, could you check in with an exercise and adapt that exercise for her? If she had pain in her wrist, do you know to ask her to keep her wrist straight and to wear wrist wraps so that she can stay safe and out of pain in your training environment? Do you know how to adapt all of the things in your classes or your training sessions for our pregnant clients? Do you know, or does all your staff in your gym know these things as well? So do they understand the signs and symptoms that our pregnant and postpartum mums are dealing with in order to change what's happening in their training sessions? Are you able to use the information provided to you by your pelvic health physio partner in order to make changes? Or are you just sending them to a pelvic health physio, hoping that they get the information they need and relying on the fact that a sleep deprived mum can interpret all that and give herself alternative exercises in your training environment? They can't. Are you able to check in with her energy levels each class, with her mental health, and adapt her training session on that day accordingly? And do you know when you don't know enough to provide the best possible care to ensure that you and your team level up? Even if you do all the first things right, which I hope that you do, and we've all got to start somewhere, you've got to make sure that you back up what you're saying to your mum client. So you could do a really great pre-exercise screening, you could send her to a pelvic health physiotherapist, but if you can't adapt things inside of her training session and write a program specifically for the individual mum in front of you, or adapt today's programming to the different cases of the 7, 8, 9, 10 female mum bodies in front of you, then there's more work that you can do to ensure that you're properly looking after and serving your mum clients. And at the end of the day, working with clients is not really hard. There's simple frameworks that we can teach you to make sure that you can implement this in every single training environment. It does take time, consideration, energy, and to build a culture where you care. But the upside of that is, I love this picture, when you do all of these things and you put them in place and you stand out as someone that attracts mums into your fitness business in the right ways, serves them in a way that lets them know that you really care about them, then your retention is easy and referrals will come. Because what is the one thing that women do, especially mums? If they learn something, they go tell their mother's group, who then goes tells their friend, who then tells their mother. So the ripple effect of getting this right is not only the 10, 15, 20, 30 mums that you have in your class, it's all of their friends. And if we can think about that, you know, the impact that we can have on multitudes of mums, and not only our what's the word, not demographic, our age group. A lot of women will then go and tell their mothers who are candidates for prolapse surgery in their 60s and 70s and beyond that, because anything that we're not sorting out in the early postpartum stage, and as we move through motherhood, is going to get worse when it comes to perimenopause and also into menopause. So I get really, really excited. And I truly believe that we have a huge, huge opportunity to be part of the change that we really, really need to see within the fitness industry, to thrive within our fitness business, because the mum market is massive when we do it well. And yeah, to really work together to create change. So I am kind of getting to wrapping up. I feel like I've spoken really fast today. So if anyone's got questions, we are going to have plenty of time for questions. But a little recap of today. So we've been through statistics. So hopefully you guys can go and rattle off to someone that's like, I don't work with mums. You're like, yeah, you do, dude. This is why. And mums are not only early postnatal women. We've talked about how to attract in really ethical ways that start to shift our industry away from solely aesthetics, and smaller is better. We've talked about how to really serve your mum clients well, creating partnerships in the marketplace. And we've talked about retention. So I used to have I had clients that came to me when their babies were like, I don't know, 6 weeks old, and they would still be training with me in Centennial Park doing mums and bubs 6 years later. So mums will stay. I'd love to know in the chat box, those of you that are available, your top 3 takeaways, or if you can't manage 3, 1 is good, from today. And if anybody's got any questions, I am here for them. And that is it. I've got one more slide, which is a thank you slide, but I'd love to see your takeaways. And has anyone got any questions? Jess, sending my pregnant clients to see a physio. Awesome. Do you have a pelvic health physio that you refer to? Yeah, cool. Nice. Awesome. If anyone doesn't have a pelvic health physio, you can go to mumsafe.com.au. We have a database or a directory of pelvic health physios. You just put in your location and it'll spit out some physios in your area. Any questions? Awesome. Ariane's going to partner with a pelvic health physio. Good job. Nice work. Got a thank you slide. There you go.
Thank you, Jen. That was superb. Thank you for being so generous with your time. Thank you to everyone that jumped on as well. I hope you feel a little more enlightened, educated, and informed, and have taken away some really tangible information to obviously have a bigger impact with your community and within your community as well. Make sure you connect with Jen. She gives a lot away. You can derive a lot of value from just being in her community. So make sure you take advantage of that as well. We have another masterclass in a couple of weeks' time. We've got some marketing powerhouses on in the next few weeks. So make sure you keep an eye out for those. Remember, Filex Business Summit, we have early bird tickets with $100 off if you use the code ELITE. So if you use the code ELITE, it's $495 for a 2-day conference with catering, which is truly insane. So make sure you take advantage of that. Otherwise, Jen, everybody, thank you. You've been amazing. Have an incredible Friday and an even better weekend. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.